So hi to everybody that is listening at the moment. This is our first live, so it's a bit exciting. It's a bit new. I apologise if we have technical issues, but yeah, we're going to roll with it. So I'm Kirsten. I'm from Rose Wellness. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and please feel free to drop us any questions in the comments, and hopefully Nikki will be able to answer those for you. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Nikki.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Nikkie Windsor. My business is Jungle Goddess Gut Health UK, and I'm a nutritionist, health coach. I am a gut health expert and a fermentation specialist. Basically, as fermenting helps with gut health. So I help people who are struggling with chronic digestive issues really get a healthy, functioning gut again.
Right. So you're going to tell us all about fermentation, aren't you, Nikki? And what the process is as well, because I'm fascinated by the process of it all as well. So
yeah, so fermented, you're probably eating fermented foods without even realizing it, because fermentation is part of the process of many different products. So chocolate, there is a stage in the chocolate making process where the beans are fermented. The same with coffee. Yogurt, most yogurts are pasteurized, but they've gone through a fermentation process. Beer, wine, spirits. So there's a lot of things that are fermented products. Cheese is fermented. But when we talk about fermented products, we normally refer to the ones that have got live microbes in them. And that will be things like sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, kombucha, some raw cheeses, a live yogurt. But the process of fermentation is basically where you're creating a food or you're changing the properties of the food by using microbes. So you will introduce microbes to a food, and you want certain kinds of beneficial microbes. So you create an environment that favors good bacteria and microbes, and one that puts off the bad ones. Because obviously what we don't want is lots of bad microbes getting in there and upsetting our gut. We want to encourage the good ones. And you can do that through environment. So that whether that's through temperature, many of the bad microbes can't exist in an environment without oxygen. So we keep our ferments under a level of liquid to protect them from those microbes. And over time, what happens is these microbes change the properties of the food. And that change, in some ways, it's kind of like a pre-digestion. So fermented foods are not raw. They've had microbial activity on the food components. So it changes the structure of the food. But generally, it makes it more digestible for us, and it improves the nutritional profile. So it will often make a lot of the vitamins and minerals more bioavailable to us.
Mm-hmm.
The way that we got into it was for preservation reasons. So it was before refrigeration. We would ferment, preserve foods, especially like here, you'd want to preserve your autumn crop through the winter. So to have sort of fresh food through the winter. We need it less for that nowadays. We usually eat fermented foods for the benefit, the health benefits.
Yeah. And why is it so good for our health?
We have a whole colony where we have several colonies of microbes living in and on our body. So you have, they're called microbiomes. So you might have heard of The most common one is the gut microbiome, but you have them all over. So you'll have a skin microbiome, there's a microbiome in the mouth, but the one that we're using fermented foods for is this colony of microbes in the gut. And we need them to survive. You know, as a human being, we have barely more DNA than an earthworm. We have half the amount of DNA of an apple. So we have about 22,500 DNA, and our microbial community adds like millions to that. So that is how we have this complicated functioning body, because we need to exist in with these microbes. You know, they're really important to our health. So these microbes in the gut, they will actually produce valuable biochemicals for us that we need to survive. So they synthesize vitamin K, for example. They help with immune function, so they communicate with the immune system. So your immune function is tightly connected with your gut microbes. Mental health, so your gut microbes communicate with the brain. So you've got this gut-brain connection there. It can help with weight management. So some of the time, if you've got an imbalance of bacteria, those cravings that you have trouble managing may not be coming from your brain. They may be coming from the microbes in your gut, communicating to your brain to tell you to eat these things that you should be eating.
That's so fascinating. This is really important, isn't it, for us to ensure that we keep the microbiome healthy in our gut for so many reasons.
It is, and it's about balance, because we have viruses, we have bad bacteria and everything in our gut. So it's not about getting rid of all of these. It's about getting a good balance, and you can get that good balance from a good diverse diet, exercise, stress management. I've just come off a webinar that I was doing and talking about how stress hormones affect the gut microbes and the immune system. So, you know, by reducing our stress, we help with that balance of microbes as well.
For lots of things. And how did you get into kind of eating fermented foods and making fermented foods?
So I've lived with Crohn's disease for 35 years, and 15 years ago I had major surgery to take part of my bowel out, and instead of recovering, I got sick again, and I got diagnosed with IBS as well as IBD. And I was in a high stress job, and I got to the point I could barely leave my house. So I made a decision to take a career break, and the unusual decision to buy a ticket to travel the world when I could barely leave my house.
Wow.
But I gave myself 8 months to get well enough to travel, and I took off for a year through the Americas. I got to Costa Rica, fell in love with the place, and decided to stay. But it was quite a remote area. So there was very little in the way of medical support there. I mean, I hadn't planned on staying. It was just one of those things that 7 weeks turned into nearly 11 years. But to stay there, I mean, in the beginning, I had lots of ups and downs with my health, and with having little medical support in the area, it was like, I need to figure out how I can manage my symptoms. So I looked into various different things. I trained as a massage therapist. I trained in energy work. I became a Reiki master. I studied medicinal plants and diet. And I heard that fermented foods were good for gut health. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to try some fermented foods then. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy over there because it was all internet cafes and trying to do some research, but I just really threw myself into it, and I had things bubbling away all over my house, and it was friends. I was actually on a medicinal plant conference up in the capital city, and we took a minibus up there. And when I was talking to people about what I was doing, they're like, you should do this, you should sell this. So they encouraged me to open a stall at the local market, and I started selling fermented foods. And just once you get into it, you just end up going off into all different directions. So you really are only limited by your imagination when you're fermenting. And I mean, I've picked, you know, some of my ferments to show. So like,
What's that?
so this is a sauerkraut. So this is a spicy sauerkraut. So this is red cabbage, red onion, chili, coriander stem, and pineapple.
Ooh, nice.
But I love the bright colour. And then go a different way. And we've got another bright colour. This is one of the sauerkrauts that I would sell in Costa Rica. It's Indian kraut, so it's cabbage, and then just Indian spices and garlic, ginger, turmeric. So it's turmeric that's giving it that beautiful colour. So yeah, it's you end up branching into different areas. I've got a couple of others that I'll show when we start talking about kids.
So did you notice quite quickly when you started eating fermented foods that you got the benefit of it, or did it take a while? Kind of, how was it for you?
It can take a while. Some people, when they're starting to take ferments, take too much,
right,
and then get overwhelmed by it, and they find symptoms might increase. And so it's one of those things you've got to be careful. You're feeding a load of different microbes into your body with a load of fiber and probiotics and prebiotics.
Yeah.
So prebiotics are plant fibers that our probiotics feed on. So it's like you're sending all of the good guys in, and if you got a load of bad guys, then you can end up having a bit of conflict going on down there. And when that happens, you can get bloated, you might get a bit of constipation, you might get a bit of diarrhea. So fermented foods, you know, with some people, you know, when they change the diet, it's all gung-ho with it. Right, let's get into this. And it's like, sometimes it's better with fermented foods, it's better to build it up so you get accustomed to it.
So you'd start small bits.
So even like a teaspoon can give you a really good amount. I mean, I recommend a tablespoon of sauerkraut on a daily basis to give you as much probiotics as a pill would give you, a probiotic supplement. But start with like a teaspoon and build it up, because you don't want to scare yourself off from it.
Yeah.
You know, suddenly take a load of this in, then you start getting bloated. It's just you just got to build your tolerance up for it and build up that slowly build up that good bacteria and get that balance back.
Yeah.
But it's something, I mean, I eat fermented foods or drinks on a daily basis now. I mean, I can remember one of my customers, the yogurt that I used to make, would say it's the only thing that settled his gut. And whenever he went off of it, he'd start having gut problems again. So he was like, I have to keep buying your yogurt. So it really can make a lot of difference with how you're feeling.
Great. So for me, never done any fermenting. As a first time starter, and maybe a mum who doesn't have much time, what would you kind of recommend really for somebody like me who's a busy mum of two and I've never done any fermenting before, so I wouldn't even know where to start? What would you kind of recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I'd recommend starting simple. The tools that you use are important. So I've only got one here. So this is milk kefir.
Oh,
So these clip jars are really good jars to start with. They're inexpensive, but they help to protect the ferment because this seal here, all ferments, most ferments will they're microbes, and the fermentation process gives off gas.
right.
So you need something that's going to allow the gas to escape. As I said, you've got microbes that have bad microbes in the air that like oxygen, so you don't want them getting in. So these are good jars to get started with. And you can get started with, you need something when you're doing ferments like these, you need, when you're actually fermenting them, you'll have them under a level of liquid. You need some sort of weight to hold it down. And
Right.
if you're a fan of those little GU desserts, those jars are really good because they fit inside these clip jars. So you can use that as a weight.
Oh, okay.
So it's a cheap way of getting started and keeping it nice and simple. Simple things like kefir is really easy to make. So if you do drink milk and if you like yogurt, then it's a good place to start. It's sour. And it's more sour than yogurt, so you could mix it with yogurt to begin with, or with some fruits to get used to eating it.
Yeah.
But what you can do if you find that you like fermenting, you can progress on to other fermenting systems. So like airlock systems. So airlock fermenting systems are really good for people who are really busy and they don't have the time to keep an eye on their ferments. I mean, I used to ferment in open vessels, but I was checking on them every day. These are very forgiving, so you can leave them for days or even weeks. But an airlock system, if you just want to make a ferment and come back to it in 4 weeks, then they're like the safest setup. So they're really good for busy mums.
Sort it out, leave it for a couple of weeks, forget that it's there, and then realise it's there and go back to it.
And you know, as long as they're under a level of liquids, the vegetable ferments, they're good.
Yeah.
If you think this is how we used to store vegetables through winter months, we would store them for months like that. But you guys have got to make sure they're under liquid.
And how long could you leave them? So, say if I made a jar of something and obviously I left it for a few weeks, started eating stuff out of it, how long can you then continue to kind of eat stuff out of it? Does it depend on what's in it, or?
So something like a sauerkraut, you would typically ferment a sauerkraut for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It depends on temperature. The warmer it is, the quicker it will ferment. But once it's reached a sourness and the acidity drops, so they're quite acidic. They're acidic, they're sour. And that's the process. It's called lacto fermentation because it's lactic acid that's populating the ferments, and that's what brings the acidity level down, and that acidity is what preserves it. Okay. So with the sauerkraut, with 4 to 6 weeks of fermenting, that acidity is going to be nice and low. So once you put that in the fridge, it's good in the fridge for 6 months, 18 months. It lasts a really long time.
Oh, that's
There's
great.
other ferments that you can do, which are shorter ferments. So like I'll make a fermented tomato salsa, and
Hmm.
that will be fermented for 5 days. Well, that doesn't get to that low level of acidity.
Yeah.
So I'd want to eat that within a week to 10 days. So
Okay.
it really depends on what you're fermenting, how long you're fermenting for. And when you get into fermenting, you can get like pH paper and stuff and to check, how well it's fermented and how long it will last for.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And what about getting our kids involved in fermenting? Is it something that we could get the kids involved in, tasting?
Definitely. I mean, I think with kids, the sourness, this acidic taste, kids nowadays aren't really used to that. They're used to, as they have a sweet tooth. So it's introducing them to it slowly. But one of the best ways of getting them to eat fermented foods is get them to make it.
Yeah.
Because when they're making it, it gets fun. Now, if we're making, say, I haven't got a sauerkraut in a clip jar, so I'll be using this kefir as an example. So I would fill this up to about there with sauerkraut. So with ingredients, I put a weight on it to weigh down the cabbage under a level of liquid. Now, over a few days, that bacteria is going to start getting active.
Yeah.
When it gets active, we get into the bubbling stage of fermenting. And then kids love that
Yeah.
because it's moving, it's shaking, and you'll be able to hear it fizzing out of the top of the bar.
Yeah.
Now, if you do end up opening it, obviously you've got to be careful when you open because you're letting air in. But you can open it slightly and they'll get to hear this fizz. I've got a video online of me and it's just spurts out this liquid. So, getting them to see stuff like that,
Yeah.
it's
It's quite like sciencey a little bit, isn't it? It's kind of like,
exactly.
yeah.
When you start talking to them about these gut bugs and, well, we got these good gut bugs in here and we got bad gut bugs and that's what we're creating here. So you create a story out of it. And then it's things that a lot of kids don't really like the texture of things like sauerkraut. So try and look at things that they enjoy. So like one of the things like here, these are fermented carrot sticks.
Oh, okay.
So being carrots, they're a sweeter vegetable.
Yeah.
And most kids like carrots and they keep a crunch with them. I've actually fermented this in orange juice with orange rind. So you got something like that, or this is typically American, but they taste really good. So these are what we call dilly beans. So these are green beans. So these are what's called lacto-fermented vegetables. So whereas sauerkraut, you wouldn't add any water, these you're adding a salty water and fermenting them in those. So those, it's like they're getting a piece of carrot, a piece of bean, and they get to chew on those. Again, small amounts, things like, so mix it into something that they like. If it's a sauerkraut, add a bit of sauerkraut onto a salad, put a bit into a sandwich, and just put like a teaspoon in and build it up slowly.
Yeah.
Things like kefir, it's kind of it's sour, but it's like that off milk, so it can take a bit of getting used to. But to begin with, you can mix it with regular yogurt. You can blend it up with a bit of honey and fruit, and do a fruit smoothie. So you can very easily add it in that way, so they get more comfortable doing it.
Things. I think I'm quite good at hiding things in food.
I would imagine being a parent, you get very good at that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think my kids would love something like that. Can you ferment fruit and is it just vegetables or can you do fruit as well? Or
You can do fruit. Like this one has pineapple in it. I've got another one in the fridge, which is turmeric and pineapple. But fruit, um, if you're just doing fruit, it's a short ferment. So
right.
I do a pineapple kimchi. So kimchi is Korean and it's like vegetables mixed with a spicy paste.
Yeah.
And that's what this pineapple one is. It's chunks of pineapple mixed up with a spicy chili paste. But that's a lot shorter. So you'd only ferment that for a few days and eat it fairly quickly. You can make hot sauces. I mean, I used to make plenty of fruit hot sauces as well. But they'll break down a lot quicker. So they'll go a lot more mushy quicker.
Yeah.
And that acidity can go a bit far on fruits. But you can do them, but then they're short ferments that need to be used quite quickly.
Thank you. And how can we find out more, Nikki?
So, I mean, I have a YouTube channel, so I have my YouTube channel, and well, all of my social media is at Gut Health UK. And I have some videos on how to make sauerkraut, for example, on there. I have a fermenting workshop coming up. It's gut health and fermented foods. So that's happening next Tuesday. It's an online workshop at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so that can be found on my social media and on my website. And I share a lot of information on my social media as well. And anyone who gets onto my workshop will get added to my private fermenting agents Facebook group after. So you'll get ongoing support with your fermenting journey.
That's great. So everybody give Nikki a follow at Gut Health UK. And you've got some great things on your website as well, haven't you? And I know you've just done, as it's Pancake Day, we should mention pancakes. I feel like we have to.
Yes.
But you did some great recipes, didn't you, for people as well who have been who struggle with IBD, IBS, Crohn's disease, anything to do with kind of gut health. You had some great recipes as well there, didn't you? So if they sign,
with food intolerance, and a lot of people have food sensitivities, and being Pancake Day, milk, egg and flour, they're all allergens.
yeah.
So for anyone who signs up to my newsletter is going to get a copy of my ebook. It's a 17-page ebook with a number of recipes and ingredient swaps for anything that you might be allergic to, and some information about intolerances and allergens as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Nikki. I hope your workshop goes really well on Tuesday. I'm sure.
Thank you.
Amazing things to learn with all fermenting. I feel like I really need to give it a go now. I've kind of been too scared to have a go, but I feel like I need to have a go. So yeah, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get some stuff together and I'm gonna get the kids involved and we're gonna have a go at maybe just some simple things to start with, like the carrots or, or something like that.
Join me on next Tuesday
Yeah.
and learn how to do. There's certain risks that you need to be aware of, but once you know about those, and one of the main ones is keeping everything under a level of liquid. You're limited by your imagination. In my workshop, I have a slideshow of different ferments that I've made over the years, really to inspire people, because you think of fermented foods being quite narrow, but there's so much that you can do with fermenting, whether it's hot sauces or sauerkrauts. And I mean, I've got about 6 or 7 different sauerkrauts in the fridge. I've got 3 different kimchis. It's there's just so much that you can do with it.
Things everywhere.
Yeah, and it's things, but you then have to look after them. So it's like once you start like with these are kefir grains. I have water kefir as well. If anyone does kombucha, if you make ginger bugs to make ginger beer, that's a good one for kids.
Ginger beer.
Because kids, it will be a sparkling, it'll be a carbonated, naturally carbonated ginger beer.
Mm.
Same as kefir is a great one for kids because it's sweetened, it's naturally carbonated, but it's full of probiotics. But yeah, you have to feed them all. So then you have your kefir babies and your kombucha mothers and your ginger bugs, and they all need looking after. So that's a great thing for the kids. You give that, it's like instead of buying them a rabbit, get them kefir babies.
I think my little one would love that. My youngest is obsessed by babies, so get her maybe some little live things that she can look after. She'd really enjoy. So, yeah,
There you
definitely.
go.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nikki, for joining us tonight and sharing your wisdom. So please do follow Nikki at Gut Health UK and take a look at Nikki's workshop Tuesday next week. What time is that, Nikki?
7 o'clock.
And that's online, isn't it? So anybody
Yes.
can join from anywhere. So
Yeah, and also if you want to follow along with the demonstration, then I tell you in advance what you need to be able to do that as well.
great. That sounds brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who's listening. Does anybody have any questions? I know there's a few people still online. If anyone's got any questions, then feel free to ask them while we're here, while Nick is here. And I'm sure you can message either of us after
Yeah.
this, if you have any further questions about anything. So, and hopefully I'm going to post this recording up as well, so people can either rewatch stuff or new people can see it. So if there's any more questions or comments, then please do let us know. So, but yeah, thanks so much, and hoping to do a few more lives. Continue to do a few more Instagram lives coming up over the next couple of months with a few other different people around all sorts of things to do with health and wellness as well. So please keep your eyes peeled. But yeah, that's it for this evening. Go and enjoy the rest of your pancake evening if you're still making pancakes, and we'll see you soon. Thanks ever so much, Nikki.
All right. Thanks, Kirsten.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.